welcome everybody to the first HRUG Open meeting of 2025. It's for people, I guess, outside China, I can wish you a Happy New Year, but it's not New Year in China yet, so it's a mixed message. But hope you're all well. For people who haven't viewed this set of meetings before, HRUG stands for Human Rights Universal and General, and pretty our aim is that for the last Friday of every month we have an open session that was so we started late last year. Our last meeting, in fact, was in November. There was interruptions over we didn't have a meeting over the holiday period, and I'm not sure if we're having one in February due to the I'm not sure what the schedule is for February, if that has been set. But today we're very pleased to have a focus on political and legal events in Turkey, and we're very pleased to have the lawyer VELİ Can ÇINAR, who is going to present on the case of Can Atalay. My Turkish pronunciation is deplorable, so my apologies all around. So what I'm going to do now is hand over the floor to VELİ. VELİ, very welcome.
Thank you. Today I'll try to present you one of the most problematic case of in Turkey. As you can see, Can Atalay, he's a lawyer, by the way, a colleague of mine once again, and was elected as a member of parliament from the Workers' Party of Turkey in 2023 during the general elections in Turkey. That's one thing. And also a colleague of his colleague Ahmet Şık. He's a defender of Ahmet Şık and worked as a defender of rights in many cases. People from Turkey might know the Soma mining disaster and also Çorlu train accident, just two of many of accidents and disasters. But the problem is directly related to Gezi Park case. So he was also the lawyer of Taksim Solidarity about Gezi Park case. So the tension actually rises from this Gezi Park protests and Can Atalay's involvement to the case. So maybe I can summarize the prosecution process, because we need to know what happened on this process. Firstly, 13th High Criminal Court heard the Gezi Park case, and in 2022 Atalay was convicted of the offense of attempting to overthrow the government of the Republic of Turkey, or to prevent it from performing its duties. And he was sentenced and just imprisonment and arrest also following the conviction. But the problem starts from here. So in the same year, he made an appeal to the Regional Court of Appeal according to Turkish law, and this appeal actually rejected. Then, according to Turkish law, you can make an appeal to Supreme Court, and he made his application to Supreme Court. Let me full screen it. Sorry for that. And then, actually, main argument here on this application to Supreme Court was legislative immunity. As we know, he is one of the member of parliament from a legal party, and that's the second paragraph of the Article 83 of Constitution of Turkey. It provides a legislative immunity to the parliament of members of parliament. But there's an exception. There's a problem in this paragraph as well. As you can see, this provision shall not apply in cases where a member is caught in flagrante delicto requiring heavy penalty and in cases subject to Article 14 of the Constitution. Article 14 of the Constitution is about abusement of legal rights and duties. So his actually argument also request was rejected by the Third Criminal Chamber of the Supreme Court. This might seem like an ordinary case, but actually it is not. So also Erdogan made statements about Atalay case during the judgment process. This is another problematic point of our case. He basically said that the Constitutional Court has unfortunately started to make many mistakes, one after the other. This makes us seriously upset. This is the statement of President Erdogan in 2023 after Supreme Court rejected his application. Also, he made an application to Atalay. Can Atalay made an application to Constitutional Court. And Constitutional Court ruled Can Atalay's right to be elected and to engage in political activity and his right to liberty and security of person had been violated, and his retrial, stay of execution, and release should be ordered according to Constitutional Court's decision. But problem starts here once again. Supreme Court's Third Criminal Chamber actually ruled that the Constitutional Court's decision should not be complied with, and a criminal complaint should be brought against the members of Constitutional Court. So after this decision of the Third Chamber of Supreme Court, Atalay made another application to Constitutional Court because its Constitutional Court's judgment had not been implemented by the Supreme Court, and in the same year, the court stated that the decision was unconstitutional. The Constitutional Court, and ruled for Can Atalay's release once again, and a retrial once again, and a stay of execution once again. But the Supreme Court's Third Criminal Chamber declared for the second instance that the court was not required to follow the Constitutional Court's ruling. So this is the summary of the case as well. But we have another problem related to our Constitution. As you can see, according to Article 153, the last paragraph of this article, all the decisions of the Constitutional Court shall be binding, I say, on the legislative, executive, and judicial organs, on the administrative authorities, and on persons and corporate bodies. So there's no exception of it in our law. So Constitutional Court's decisions are all binding for person, for courts, etc. So this actually did not end here. Mehmet Hoca might know that there was a session at the parliament about Can Atalay. In this session, actually, members of parliament fought against each other. So as you can see here, if you can see my mouse here, is Ahmet Şık, is a colleague of Can Atalay as well, and this was Alpay Özalan from another party. He attacked Ahmet Şık. He's a member of parliament from Workers' Party of Turkey as well. And after this session, Erdogan made another statement about this case. As you can see, I actually added the Turkish versions of it for the Turkish audience, but I guess there's only one here is Mehmet Hoca. So as you can see, Erdogan involved this and interfered to judgment process. This was another problem about Can Atalay case. And I can basically say that as a lawyer, I can't find any way to deal with this problem in Turkish law, because and what happens if the third criminal chamber does not follow the constitutional court's ruling? So what do we have to do, or what can we do? There's not really an option in Turkish law. I can say this is now like the de facto situation. So there's nothing left to do in terms of law in the fields of law. I don't know how will this end. Thanks for listening. I hope it was a clear presentation about this case. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thanks very much, VELİ, for that brief but succinct account of these political and legal developments, which some of us may know about, but maybe others outside Turkey aren't too aware of. Extremely surprising and puzzling, in a sense, developments. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do now is open the discussion to comments and questions. So please, colleagues, feel free to join in.
Can I ask something?
Minute.
No. I would ask something to VELİ as an amateur. I'm not a legal scholar, as you all know, but this comes in my mind. And now in the USA, after Trump has become president, this is of course not the same thing, but it comes in my mind. He has decided, remember, to cancel the naturalization law. So people who are now born in the USA can no longer become American citizens. And as far as I have read, this is part of the Constitution. So I will ask VELİ if this is, can we say, approved in the USA. If Trump's step will be approved, cancel this thing, can we see a similarity between Can Atalay's case? So the responsibilities of certain courts and the Constitutional Court, are they also then in a sort of conflict, similar to Can Atalay's case in our country?
Hocam, thanks for the question. In our case, in Atalay case, actually the Supreme Court's decision mainly based on the exception of legislative immunity. As you can see, initiated before the election. Actually, the court has stated that this case actually started before election, so this is lawful according to their mindset. But I don't really see a similarity between Trump's case and Atalay's case, because actually they're abusing the relativity of the Constitution. I mean, the Supreme Court here in this case. Relativities such as exception of legislative immunity, such as also such as the 14th article of our Constitution. So it's in terms of law, it might seem like lawful, but I don't think so. They're highly political, highly dependent on the statements of Erdogan, as you know.
If I could come in there, from your presentation, VELİ, what is different from the American case is that here you have two different courts. So it's in the first instance, it's a conflict within the judiciary, within the court system, which makes it all the more complex, and distinguish that kind of case from a case that, as Mehmet mentions, in the States would be the Constitution, and presumably the Supreme Court in the United States as guardians of the Constitution versus the political executive arm. But in Turkey, as I understand it, in the first instance, part of the conflict is within the judicial arm itself, the constitutional judicial arm.
Yes, it's a part of judicial problem actually, but as you can see on the in the article, 153, it's obvious for all of us in Turkey. So we are all binded with the decisions of Constitutional Court, but however, Supreme Court entitled itself like an immune judicial body in Turkey. So it's highly political in Turkey. We cannot say that it's just a judgment based on law. It's about Gezi Parkı, it's about AKP's hegemony, and also the argument against Gezi Park revolt. So it's all together from my point of view.
And I wonder, VELİ, would you say a little bit more about that context, that Gezi Park, and maybe your take on the type of political system that currently obtains? How do you understand Erdogan? Is he for example, parallels with Trump or not?
So for the part of the case in Turkey, Gezi Park revolt actually was the biggest revolt against AKP's hegemony during their political life. So it's important to see the Gezi Park revolt as the main part of this case. Actually, I can say also Atalay was as I said, the defender of rights in many cases, such as Soma mining disaster. It was one of the biggest disasters in the history, I guess, in the mining history, I guess. And also Chorlu train accident was one of them. So in USA, it's a bit in the fields of law. They can discuss about the process, the law, the constitution, and the judgments, but in our country, it's highly politicized. I should say, even the judges, even the courts are now acts like political figures in Turkey. Many prosecutors, many judges, as you know, the Turkish audience. I don't really, I can't really find a solution to this problem in terms of law. As I said, it's highly political right now, and the lack of sort of problem in law in Turkey. So how do we solve this problem? There's no answer to it.
Okay, you are.
Yeah, VELİ, I have a question. I'm not so familiar with the Turkish legal system, especially, in China, we do not have the similar institution of constitutional court. Yeah, so this a little bit different, and because I'm also a lawyer, I'm curious about, in this case, because the core issue is the legislative immunity. So is there any limits to the legislative immunity? I noticed that during your presentation you mentioned there is an exception. The exception is if the committee is not applicable in cases. So this is the limit, right? But it seems that the Constitutional Court and the third chamber, the third criminal chamber, they interpret it in a different way, right?
Actually, according to Supreme Court, that's the true interpretation of this part of the article, but actually their judgment is based on Gezi Park protests, so they can basically say that our prosecution has started before his election. So that's the main point of this decision of criminal chamber of the Supreme Court. So according to their they think the commitment of the crime, according to Supreme Court, Can Atalay actually committed his crime before his election. So they're actually rejecting any kind of argument on the legislative immunity.
Okay, yeah. So in another sense, sorry, sorry, Joe, I have a follow-up question.
No, go ahead,
So
please.
yeah. So in another sense, the case, I mean, your colleague, the name, is named Ken, right? He has also kind of like, he was convicted of a crime. Though this was kind of like, it seems like a criminal. You know, this is kind of like, but it is not the, it's kind of like political, right? He has been politically convicted, right? So this is your claim.
Yes, that's the point actually.
Okay.
Because we saw Can Atalay in many cases, as I mentioned, in Soma, in Çorlu, in Gezi Park. He was always defending the people's right in many cases, which directly or indirectly against AKP's policies. So that's more like a political connection, as you said.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Joe.
You're welcome.
I was just going to ask VELİ again, maybe just because you've mentioned it a few times, and for the benefit of colleagues from outside of Turkey who may not be so well up on these matters. Could you just say a little bit about the Gezi Park incident?
Yes, it was started in 2013 in Istanbul. As you can see, it was about a park. First, it was started about the trees and the environment. They were against some sort of I don't really know the English name of it, but I guess it was like a külliye or something. Hocam, Mehmet Hocam, if you can help me about this. In Gezi Park,
maybe we can say, VELİ, to support. It started as a sort of environmentalist discourse against the aim of the government to make buildings there and to destroy somehow this green island in Istanbul. This started like this. This was the beginning of the discourse. But then the government did use so much violence against these people who were in the beginning people only of Istanbul. But later, because this is an interpretation of mine, of course, widespread interpretation, later, because of this violence, these actions did widespread all over Turkey, very much. And it became more and more something more, it became more and more something universal, a universal accusation, certain policies which led the government to be able to destroy, for example, nature, which they did also in other cases. So the Gezi Park became more and more political. And so this was the point when all the activists like Can Atalay, who supported the people there, began to be observed, some of them imprisoned, and then we have these trials, because for the government this was a sort of starting point for a broader oppositional movement. This was their fear, and they began to stop these things. And after Gezi Park, really, you can correct me also if I say something wrong, after Gezi Park was maybe the last big universal we can say, sort of uprisal all over Turkey.
Yeah.
And the trials against Atalay and other people were did so much result in an atmosphere of fear that from now on, the oppositional movement outside the parliament began somehow to stop. So this is the history of Gezi Park. It was in the beginning not too political, it became political, and then the government became afraid of a widespread critique of their mechanisms. And so Atalay, people like Atalay were chosen as sort of scapegoats, I would say. Scapegoats. People should be cautious to do similar things again. And this continues, I would say, until now in Turkey.
Okay, thank you. I just see there are other colleagues present, Edith and Salen. I don't know if they have any questions or comments. Or Theo as well.
Thank you very much for this good presentation. And also I want to add something about the Gezi Park movement. Nowadays, I guess today, Ayşe Barım, who is a, how can I say, she was a product, how can I say, the celebrity, the celebrity people contact with them, and she's like a manager. But in the Gezi Park movement, some celebrities applied for the something like the movement, and they raise questions about the government. So that's why she was accused for the how can I say, the overthrown the government in Turkey, and now she's in jail. So this Gezi Park movement's trials become still going on in Turkey, and such a bad things for our people.
But I would say something, and in sort of interpretation. What is interesting is that, remember our human rights group, Guangzhou, we debate about these things. Of course, law is always political, but it is sometimes a little bit hidden behind certain mechanisms of legalistic procedures. The law can still behave somehow in a democratic way. What Turkey has shown, I would say the Turkey case is not really exceptional. The practice, or let's say the immanent relation between law and politics, has come to the foreground in my country. It has come to the foreground. But I would say it is a sort of immanent problematic. For example, if I'm now looking to Germany again, we have now, remember, the elections in February 23. We have early elections in Germany. And some people in Germany are discussing what will happen if the AfD, the right-wing populist party, will become more and more powerful, what it becomes because of the migration discourse, which is now very rigid in Germany and Europe. And some people are speaking openly about certain possibilities of mechanisms to prevent parties like the AfD from coming possibly into power with certain mechanisms. So I would say the general global, how can we say, the global outcomes of problematics which are now coming to the foreground is worldwide a little bit the case. So Turkey has only shown its more open face, I would say. The most open reflection, expression has started in my country, but the general contradiction is, I would say, existing everywhere. this is also preventing a little bit what we have called in our group the universalism of human rights is steadily going one step, is regressing steadily, I would say. And Turkey is one of the open examples of this regression. This was only an interpretation.
If I could come in there, Mehmet, and just ask you a question in relation to the AfD in Germany, and the one is, yeah, you've got this right wing and maybe neo-fascist, I don't know, party which is in the next German general election may do quite well and somehow be eligible to be part of the government.
It is now the second big party in Germany after the Christian Democrats. The second big party.
So, but the other point you mentioned, Mehmet, is that there are proposals to try and stop them becoming forming a part of the government. So some critics would say that trying to exclude a party from government is somehow anti-democratic too. So some people point to the worrying development of the rise of neo-fascist, the popularity of neo-fascist parties, and maybe some others, very strong supporters of democracy per se, would say, well, if they get the votes, then they should be considered to be forming part of the government. So you mentioned both points. So I wasn't sure if you were critical of that proposal to, or ideas to exclude them from forming the government.
Well, on the contrary, if we are speaking in the framework of bourgeois liberal rights, democracy, then if the AfD can be forbidden, there's a debate. You can forbid the party. You can do this legally. But if the party in this bourgeois framework, which is framework of these parliamentarian states like Germany, France, etc., if you are having allowed a party to participate in elections, and if this party is not forbidden, then this party is not in my eyes maybe. This party is then a democratic party. The framework of these liberal ideas of the developed Western countries. And this is exactly a sort of attack against their own understanding. So the values they are attacking themselves, values of Europe, which they are always bringing to the foreground. And we have seen something similar in the 90s. You know, in Austria, we have a similar party, FPÖ, which is a AfD-like Austrian party, but this party is much older than in Germany. And in the 1990s, we have Jörg Haider, famous figure of this right-wing populist party. And he was near to become the president or the prime minister in Austria. And this was prevented in the European Union by certain mechanisms. And this is what I mean. The politicization of law is ongoing. We have described and explained the situation. So the politicization of law is steadily ongoing in Europe. They are still speaking of law and legality, but they are acting against themselves. This is the problem. They are acting against their own so-called bourgeois liberal values. This is what I mean with this. This is a contradiction. For them, it should be a contradiction. But this is immanent to the process of these societies. This is what I wanted to say. It's not my opinion. It's not my thing to say this party should be forbidden. For me, it's a right-wing party. But I have tried to describe the framework. Their own values in Europe. They are not realizing, I would say.
Do any other colleagues want to come in with a question or a comment? Okay, and I'm just conscious of time. VELİ, I might just invite you to, if you have any closing comments or observations, perhaps.
Sure, I can simply say that, as Mehmet Hoca said, Gezi Park is the weakest point of AKP government right now. Still is the weakest point of AKP government, because it was one of the most essential protest against AKP. So it is still is so. There will be more from my point of view. I guess there will be more unlawful acts and many problems in the near future. That's all I can say about this case. Thanks for listening today.
VELİ,
Yes, Jim.
I will ask you on one more question, because you are the expert and the lawyer. What can be done in such situations? I mean, what are the possible mechanisms? For example, can the Constitution, I'm asking as an amateur, the Constitutional Court, can they do something against this? Can they, for example, try to organize security forces to implement their decisions or not? Or it is only something theoretical? So where is the implementation power of the Constitution if the Supreme Court is not acting accordingly on the politicians? Can there anything be done against this? No.
Hocam,
You are
simply,
hopeless.
yes, that's all we can do, because execution part actually is a duty of courts, institutions, and persons, or everybody but the Constitutional Court. So that's the problem actually about Constitutional Court. How do we execute this problem? So in this situation, as you can see, Third Criminal Chamber of the Supreme Court did not follow the decision. So what happened next? So there's no answer for it right now.
So the only thing we can trust is that the politicians or the other courts can rely and, how can we say, accept the responsibility of the Supreme Court. So we can only apply to their morality or not. Nothing else. If they don't want, we have nothing to do.
Yeah, that's the summary of our case.
And everyone is the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here. I want to thank all colleagues for attending, a very interesting insight into some dynamics, political and judicial dynamics in Turkey, in a very intriguing case. I know that we'd be returning, we may have an opportunity to discuss it in the future. Mehmet and you, I'm not sure when our next HRUG open meeting is. In general, we aim to have a meeting at the last Friday of every month, but I'm not sure if that's what the schedule is for February or March. But
February, yeah, we have already planned.
Oh, yeah. Okay, people don't have anything, you see.
Yeah, as usual. Yeah.
So thank you, everybody, but a special big thank you to VELİ and ÇINAR for a very insightful presentation. So
You're
special
welcome.
thank you to VELİ.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
To everyone.